we'd start out with relaxing music. We're bringing Simon all the way in from Australia. If you would like to go to the upper right, 3 dots on your screen, and you may rename yourself. You can put your country, where you're calling in from today. I know we have an international crew joining us. It's always fun to see, so you can just after your name, put your country. I actually put or state, put PA there, Pennsylvania for me. Something there, you can join along. We'll wait a few minutes to kind of bring everybody in. Faces. Thanks so much for coming back. A lot of new faces. Thanks so much for joining us. Aha, I see some great instruments coming in too.
I see people I haven't seen in a couple of years. I see people I literally just met last weekend at a training.
New Mexico, Italy, yay, New York, Germany, Canada, Australia, Minnesota, Quebec. That's just one screen. Cool. Kansas, my old stomping grounds, Massachusetts. It's so fun to see where you're from, so thank you so much for putting that after your name. And we're about, oh, Timothy, yay, you made it over. Great. Okay, Mike, I'm going to hand it over. I have a couple other people on the other channel, so I am going to send them over here, and I'm going to hand it over to Mike.
Hey, welcome everybody. So I'll just give you a few quick reminders of Zoom. Our baseline is that we're pretty much going to stay muted, and the participants are just going to be muted, and we're going to be talking with Simon about a number of things here. And we may use the chat at some point. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat as we go, and we'll loop back to them at some point. We may not get to them right in that moment, but we'll check the chat and come back to them. And then another big piece is remembering that you can rename yourself. So it's nice to see where people are from. Clicking in the small box wherever your face is. In the upper right of that screen, there should be a little 3 little dots that allow you to rename. Or I think on some devices, you double click the little box where your face is. And you can put your name, you can put pronouns, you can put where you are. And then also remembering that you're in control of your own experience. And a lot of what that means with Zoom is changing your view when you want to. So for most devices, it's in the upper right. You'll see the word view, or you'll see the words speaker view or gallery view. And that's where you can click to switch back and forth. And you're always in control of that. So in a moment, we'll spotlight Mary and Simon, but you can still come to gallery view anytime you like. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Hey, thank you, Mike. It's good to know we're always in control. Yay. You always say that every week, and I think, oh, that's so great to know. So thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm Mary Kanish, and I'm very happy to be here and to introduce Simon Faulkner. I'm so excited to have him all the way from Australia with us, joining us tonight. And thanks for finding us at this different time on this different station. We wanted to make sure that we could facilitate room for everybody that wanted to come. Irene Ferrer, thank you so much, and Concordia University for assisting us in using this channel so that we could accommodate more people. So thanks so much to you as well. And Simon, gosh, Simon, I was trying to think about how many years ago I met you. You were doing a workshop with Jim Oshinsky in Long Island. I think that was the first time I experienced your work, and I came and it was a one day, I think. I'm going to guess 10 years, maybe, yeah, at least, maybe 15. And so as I introduced Simon, you know, this series I started a year ago when we went into lockdown with the pandemic. And I really started it with the idea that we would be in service to seniors and senior communities and their families and caregivers. And as of last week, we are now opening up the forum to all intergenerational ages. And so Simon, Arthur kicked it off last week, Arthur Hull, and moving in with Simon now because he's worked with so many different ages. When I met him, I was so struck by the research that he had done, and he's got evidence-based work, and it was beautiful. It's a fantastic body of work. I think that was it was your drumbeat program that you were doing an introduction to, and I loved it. I was like, yeah, this is perfect. So tell you a little bit about Simon, and he can tell you more about himself. He's a team leader for Rhythm to Recovery and is a leading practitioner in the design and delivery of evidence-based interventions, utilizing rhythm to assist with social and emotional learning and recovery from trauma. And I've been really focused on social emotional learning this year as well, Simon, here in the US. This is a huge part of what I think we're really going to need getting schools back up and helping kids that have just suffered through this trauma that we've had. And apparently you have not had in Australia as bad as we have had in the United States. So that was good news. Simon shared they're doing quite well. He's been closely involved in research into the benefits of drumming and has authored a dozen peer-reviewed journal articles. And the new book, today we're really going to feature his new book. And he's worked with a broad range of people, including people at risk, people dealing with drug and alcohol addiction, mental health challenges, and developmental disorders such as those on the autism spectrum. What I love about Simon's work is that it's grounded in research, which fascinates me. And he's coming at the work after being in the field as a practitioner for 20 years with all kinds of different populations. With the Aboriginal and First Nation tribes, he's done amazing work. Both in Australia and here in the US. And I think you've probably worked in Canada as well, Simon. Is that true? Yeah.
True. Yeah.
He's a qualified counselor with a background in psychology. He's a father of 3 young men, and he lives in Melbourne. And we're so happy to have you, Simon, and we're so interested in learning about the new book. Actually, I am one of the many authors that he has in the book, and he's put this remarkable collection together. And Simon, I'm going to kind of, I will help shift the conversation and guide it. But first of all, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mary. It's great to be here.
Have you.
It's Thursday here, by the way.
What?
It's Thursday here, by the
Oh,
way.
it's Thursday. Oh, thank you. That's right. It's Thursday in Australia. Yay!
Yeah.
You're
You guys are always
ahead.
behind.
We're always way behind in so many ways, Simon. Yes, that is so true. So can you tell us a little bit about this new book that you've got? And I put on my screen when I was up, you could see actually the cover of the book. We're super excited, and the release date is soon, correct?
That's right, March 18th. So yeah, it's been a long journey. Well, the book is a collaboration, really. It's 20 authors across 7 countries, sharing their expertise across 19 different population groups. So there's a wealth of information within the book. It's been designed really, I suppose, as an introduction for people who are starting off in this area. So rather than, reinvent the wheel, they can hopefully draw on the experience of others, experts in their fields. And it's also been designed as a very practical resource. So it's full of tips, full of exercises, and full of the experience, like I said, of all these contributing authors across these different fields. And basically, I suppose it came together from an understanding that more and more people are wanting to, experience this form of therapy. There's a greater acceptance of it within the medical establishment and also within the educational field. There's more and more people being trained as drum circle facilitators. And so those two elements combining, we felt that there was a need for a book of this type to give people a starting place.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to have a group of colleagues after traveling around the world as I do, that I could draw upon, their support, including yourself.
Yeah, including myself. That's right. And that's sort of why I put this program together. It's been amazing because I've had so many colleagues that I've worked with across the world as well. And it's been so wonderful to glean the expertise and genius of all of you that have been offering to our program. Tell me about the different groups that the different populations that the book focuses on.
Well, there's 19 different topical areas. So it starts off, I think, with early childhood, and then goes through youth, all the way through to seniors, and in between there, a whole range of population groups with specific challenges, such as working in the field of addiction, working with veterans, working with people who are managing trauma. There's an interesting chapter on working after natural disasters, which I think is particularly relevant at the moment.
Wow,
so
yes.
We've got 2 authors who have experienced firsthand natural disasters of a huge scale. So Hurricane Sandy and the recent bushfires here in Australia, and who've done work within communities supporting both adults and children in those communities using the drum circle.
Right.
That's a really powerful chapter. We've got chapters on grief and loss, chapters on supporting people working through cancer, or families dealing with a loved one who's going through cancer treatment. A whole range of different topical areas. And each person that we've chosen has, at least a dozen years of working full time in that area. So we've drawn on, people that really have the practical experience.
Right.
And that's really important because we wanted the book above all to be a practical resource.
Yes. So those in each chapter, I know for our chapter, when we did Lulu and I did the early childhood, you wanted specific hands-on activities. So people had something that they could go, I can do that. And then you also had the background and the research that supported why those activities were so beneficial. So it was how to implement it, but also the why behind it, which I loved. I mean, you really wanted to make sure that people understood that. Can you speak a little bit more about that and sort of why you did it that way?
Yeah, so each chapter is the same. Well, it has the same headings. And certainly one of the main sort of focuses was to legitimise the work through the evidence base, which is, quite substantial at the moment.
Yes.
And so we've brought together all the significant studies and every proposition in terms of, the positive impacts of drumming has been supported by evidence. So nobody is saying it does this and it does that without actually being able to back it up through the scientific method. In saying that, we also acknowledge that science isn't everything and evidence-based isn't everything, but the fact is that, within the Western medical model, it's very hard to bring these therapies in and be accepted without that scientific support. So the science is basically bearing witness to what Indigenous cultures have known for thousands of years. And, it's a beautiful marriage, really, because we're building on that ancient tradition and then combining it with the latest, psychological understanding of what works in effective practice. And that marriage is really powerful. There's no way we can ever really describe the power of music. It's beyond words, I think. But we can break down, as science does, we can break down certain concepts, and put our finger on the different, hormones and chemicals that are being stimulated and the neural firing rates and all of that sort of stuff.
Right.
And create persuasive arguments as to why, these therapies, should be legitimate within the health and education sectors. And that's what we've done.
That's super. Hey, Simon, I have somebody saying that they're having difficulty hearing you and wonder if they could turn your mic up a little bit. I don't know. Thumbs up. Anybody else having problems? Just a show? I'm just looking to see. Okay, it looks like a couple other people might need. Can you just bump it up a little bit, Simon, and we'll see if that helps?
I've got no idea how to do that quickly,
Mary. Okay.
Maybe I can do it just under my mic. Hold on.
If you go into the your settings on Zoom, you can do it as well, Simon.
Oh, can I? Okay.
Do you see the little mute microphone and the little up arrow?
Yeah.
If you click on that and then go to audio settings at the bottom, then it'll come up and show you, this is what I had to do. It'll show you the mic volume, input volume, and there's a little slider. Do you see that bar?
I've got it. How's that? Is that better?
It sounds good. Okay, good. It looks like people are saying yes, that's better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's probably also my Australian accent, which is a little bit different.
We need it loud and clear. That's awesome. Thank you. Hey, by the way, as we go along with Simon tonight, please feel free to put questions in the chat bar. If you have things you'd like to ask Simon, just as they pop into your mind, put them in the chat bar and we will, Mike is monitoring, we will get to that. Okay, and they say it's much better, so we're good to go. All right, sorry to interrupt, Flo. So we were back talking about the populations. Tell me a little bit, when you put it together, just what was the need? Where did you, I mean, you came up with the concept of the book to collect your colleagues. Was there an overriding? Do you feel like you started this how many years ago?
Well, we did put out an early edition of this, just a home published edition. And that was probably 5 years ago.
Okay.
And that came about from being involved in drum circle facilitator training and therapeutic training through my own business, recognizing that there are all these people wanting to move into this work. And then, also recognizing that I suppose there was a sort of greater risk because a lot of this work is seen as, an alternative therapy. There is some skepticism still around the work in terms of, a mainstream recognition within the health and education sectors. And we recognise that with all these people coming into the field, if people rushed in without sort of any prior understanding of some of the sensitivities around working with these population groups, who are often society's most vulnerable, that it threatened the reputation of the work. And I think we've seen that within the corporate drumming sector, that, there was a huge influx at some stage around people taking drums into corporate team building sessions, corporate development sessions. And, you know, some of those were very effective and well produced, and others were, you know, not done very professionally. And that impacted the whole sector. So now when you offer, you know, corporate drumming, some people are wary. And that was definitely at the back of my mind when I was watching all these people graduate and thinking, you know, how can I sort of stop people making the same mistakes and protect the reputation of the work to some degree. And that's what we hope to do with this book, and give people just a heads up about some of the things they can do to set up for success, which is one of the regular chapter headings. Some of the things that they can avoid. Common challenges and how to manage them is one of the regular chapter headings. And then we've got positive outcomes, which is the research base that supports the outcomes for each population group, and one section on practical exercises, which is probably the most important really for the practitioner. Each chapter has at least a dozen different exercises. Most of them take you through a session. And a lot of them have specific exercises for addressing specific issues that are relevant to the population that people are working with.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it's so beautiful that you're shoring up the whole facilitator world in this way, which really is important. As more people go into the field, it's kind of reminds me of what happened with music therapy early on. Is they really had to come back and have the research, because people were like, whoa, we don't know what this is. And grounding it in the research-based science is so helpful. So I love that you're serving our community in this way. It's fabulous. Now you have a couple chapters. Do you want to give us an idea of your chapters in there, Simon, who you're...
On my own work, I've written chapters on trauma. So a lot of the work that I've done has involved people who are managing trauma. And that's been across a range of different fields. So children in child protection, domestic violence. So a lot of sort of violence programs that I've done in prisons, and also work with high-risk young people and refugees. So right across those spectrums, you will find, you know, significant sort of trauma. And I've also written a chapter on working in prisons. They're my contributions to the book. And I suppose, you know, one of my main focuses within my own work is linking the drumming to people's lives, and how we can connect their drum experience. You know, drumming of itself is therapeutic, but it takes on a deeper meaning when we can link it to something that's going on in people's lives, some challenge that they're addressing, something real for them. So making that connection through reflective discussions usually has been a critical part of the work that I've done. And, you know, within the trauma field, drumming is a great sort of link between you know, our sensory world and our reflective world, because it stabilizes a lot of the sensory inputs that often dysregulate us emotionally. And it's not until those systems are stabilized that we can actually start to reflect on our own experiences and you know, plan ahead for how we can manage those. So that's been really important, that link to the cognitive. And the somatic area has been really important as well. So drumming as a somatic therapy in terms of helping people connect to their physical self, their bodies, and release you know, feelings that are repressed inside the body. And the vibrational element of the drum is really useful in that context. So those are some of the things that I talk about in relation to trauma and prison work.
The prison work sounds fascinating. Have you been working in a lot of prisons in Australia? Is that an experience you've been doing for many years?
It is, yeah. No, I've been a constant sort of part of my practice is working in different prisons. You know, all types. They vary quite significantly, from private to public to juvenile to women's to forensic. I've worked in all those settings. Yeah, it's been some of the most rewarding work. It has its challenges, and certainly it can be unpredictable. And security is always the top priority. So you're never the top priority when you're working in a prison. And you do have to be careful. So I think, I write about, remaining vigilant within the work and being careful not to get too close to the people you work with, which is a challenging one because, empathy is a very important part of our role. But, there are people within that system that will prey on that, that character.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but it's certainly, most people in prisons are there to, to learn, or a lot of people, it's a great place for self-development. You're there for a certain amount of time. There's not a lot to do. So why not, work on yourself? And we do find that. The other thing about prison work, I think a lot of prison programs require a high degree of literacy. And they're not actually, available to people who are, undereducated or who struggle with literacy. So drumming programs, experiential programs are often better attended and more successful because of that. And they reduce the shame factor associated with not being able to read or write in some of the more literate programs.
Yeah, that's so beautifully articulated as well. I love that thought. One of the things I noticed when I experienced your program, Simon, which was quite different than any others that I'd experienced, was the reflection factor. I loved the way that you had an activity and then we had time to reflect, that you really were bringing out the dialogue after the experiential time together. And that, I just think that's so powerful and so transformative. Is that a big piece of all of the work across the board that you do?
It is, yeah. That's the model that I work from, Mary. Yeah. So it's a combination of the engaging rhythmic activities, the rhythmic play, the improvised play, and then the reflective element, usually drawn from an analogy. And the drum circle is open to so many powerful analogies.
Right.
It's just ideal, as well as the drum being a really safe tool for questioning. So I never start my questioning with direct questions. I always start them through the drum, with people answering on the drum. And once they do that a couple of times, then I can move to more personalized questions. And that enables people to release a lot of tension before I start to ask someone directly to reflect on something. It's been a eye-opening experience right from the beginning. So I'm sure most of the viewers that are here tonight have had that same experience.
Right. It's in the opening, how you begin with different communities, particularly the high-risk communities that you're working with, opening the dialogue. For me, it's always like, where do we start? And can you give an example of an opening activity that would be one of your go-to activities that's in the book?
Well, there's a lot of, one of the things I guess that I focus on personally, every author will have their own, but one of the things I try and shy away from initially is teaching rhythms. In the opening work that I do a lot of rumble games, a lot of sort of fun games, without teaching parts. So I'm very conscious that people often enter my group with fear around music. And I guess one of the main interests for me these days is talking about why music isn't more prevalent within the therapeutic and educational realms.
Right.
And I think it's a conversation we really need to have, that we've made music into something that many people are hesitant about participating in.
Yes.
And that is, I think, generally through the fact that music is taught competitively after a while, not in early childhood, but it doesn't take long before we're starting to bring the competitive element into music. And then we have, of course, the elite musical class that go on to record and we listen to, and, you know, and that definitely has a part to play. But it is a tragedy, you know, I think, that music is not more widely played and available to the general public because of, you know, the power that it has to heal, not just the individual, but our communities generally. And, you know, and the work that Christine Stevens has done and others who are working at a bigger level, at a you know, international level, to bring people together.
Right.
You know, we shouldn't forget that either. So yeah, in my introductory sort of sessions, I'm always conscious of you know, building on success, having fun. I always try and keep fun front of mind. You know, making a fool of myself if I can, playing games, rumble games, lots of little games like that in terms of getting confident with the instrument. One of the fun games I have is just through the different sounds of the instrument, going around the circle in order. So if you were, you know, you may be doing, if you're thinking of an African drum, bass, tone, a slap,
Right.
and you might go around bass, tone, slap in order. Sounds very simple, and you can do a whole range of different combinations like that.
Right.
Bass, tone, tone, slap, slap, clap. You know, each time you do a different combination, you're trying to get that smooth and just going around the circle. And then you introduce the concept that each sound has a different repercussion. So if you hit a bass, it will just go to the person next to you. If you hit a tone, it will jump. So the exercise is called jump.
Yeah.
If you hit a slap, it will jump too. And you can have a lot of fun going around the circle in a game like that. And if you do a double tap, it will change direction.
Yes.
So, you know, simple games like that, rumble games, rumble waves with your eyes closed. There's lots of games that don't require you to actually start to play together and learn parts. I mean, I obviously get to that, and you know, there's a lot of power in that, but I want people to get confident and just have fun initially and build that trust before we move to anything more challenging. Even the most simple rhythm, you know, for someone who has experienced trauma, for instance, can be very challenging because of motor coordination issues. So yeah, fun. Keep fun front of mind. That's always been my number one.
And you are, and they are fun. Yeah, so it's great. It looks like Mike, I see a lot of, we're generating lots of questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Mike, is that why your hand is up?
Well, I wanted to, we're already kind of moving away from prison maybe, but I thought this was a really great question just about, you have some experience, how it was working with the American prison system different from Australia's prison system. And, you know, given the different sort of cultural identity, and someone was asking about considering the long cultural identity in Australia compared with the United States prison system.
Well, no, I don't have that experience. So I think that might have been a mistake. I've worked in America and Canada with Indigenous populations.
Yeah,
but not in the prison system. I have been into a couple of prisons in the US as a guest and done a little bit of work, but I don't know the system well. So, but you know, I think, you know, in Australia, each prison is different. You know, it depends on the philosophy behind it. Some, you know, it's very casual and prisoners are called by their first name and guards are called by their first name. In others, it's very formal and regimented, you know, and there's a big difference between medium security, low security prisons and high security prisons, you know, in terms of, you know, the security involved and all of that sort of thing. So I imagine that would be fairly similar. I think the main issue is with prisons is the recognition from prison authorities that these programs can be useful. And certainly I've done a lot of work around the research on recidivism and what, drumming, and particularly drumming with a focus on social and emotional health, can do in terms of meeting some of these risk factors around people just, being released and then finding themselves back in prison within, 6 months or so. And prison authorities are definitely interested if you can make a case against, for improving or reducing recidivism. And the drum circle can be really good for that, because the drum circle can be representative of the community. So you can practice a lot of skills around reintegration into community and how you find your part and your place in community. You can do a lot of work in the drum circle around communication, which is a critical area in terms of relationships, and a lot of people in prison struggle when they get released to move back into healthy relationships within their families and their domestic life. So those are some of the angles. We also do quite a lot of work around anger management and stuff like that on the drum.
And I'm curious how many people here today have done a training with Simon of some kind.
Let's see, just a minute. I want to put it on gallery.
Yeah, I'm seeing 5 or 6 hands. My wife has as well.
Yeah, it's great work. Super.
Yeah. Yes, it's a long way from face-to-face training overseas, I'm afraid, for us.
Right.
Yeah, once you leave Australia, you can't get back in. It's almost impossible to get back in. So
that's
but
why
we
you're
have
doing so well.
Yeah. We have an online training and resource package though. So if people are interested in the work, it's quite a comprehensive package of material and training videos. So that's available for people that might be interested.
Hey, Simon, I'm particularly interested in, and it's not in the same way Mike asked about the prisons. I'm particularly interested in the First Nation. You have done work in Native American, First Nation, and Aborigine, correct? In
That's
both.
right. Yeah.
And are there differences or similarities? I mean, I'm sure there are many similarities. Did you notice differences in those cultures moving from America to Australia, or in Canada where you were working with First Nation?
Not a lot of differences, to be honest. I think there are a lot of things that tie Indigenous experiences throughout the world. Certainly, a passion for the drum and rhythmic music. It's not actually well known because of cultural dispossession in Australia, but there is a drumming tradition in Australia.
Yeah.
Rolled up possum skins were used in ceremonies and beaten with sticks to make a drumming sound. And that's there's also, of course, the tapping sticks of Aboriginal people.
Yes.
But I write on this in the book. I'm very wary that that I'm coming from the outside, so I don't want to talk about the Aboriginal experience from an Aboriginal perspective.
Sure.
But I think it's important to understand how to work respectfully and culturally in a culturally safe way as a non-Aboriginal person, non-Indigenous person, and that's the sort of perspective I try to take in the book.
Right.
I did a lot of work trying to find an Indigenous author for the book to write on this area, but of course it's challenging because most Indigenous people, when they drum in a culturally specific way. And we of course in the drum circle, we're very careful not to tread on that area.
Yes.
And it's a very sensitive area for most or for many Indigenous people, cultural appropriation. So in some ways, it's actually, I think, probably more practical to have the chapter written from a non-Indigenous perspective, because that's where the danger lies.
Right.
Yeah.
I was curious. Yeah. Have you trained people within the Aborigine culture that are doing this work in their communities?
Yes, no, I've got, I train a lot of Aboriginal people. That's where I started, Mary.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I was a counsellor, psychology background and addiction. I worked for an addiction service in a remote area of Western Australia, which is, the size of Texas.
Yeah.
And I couldn't engage the people I was working with my training, which was to talk about feelings, behaviours, thoughts,
Right.
and the interaction between the three. And somebody passed me in a hallway one day, an Aboriginal man, in fact, colleague, and said, how did the session go? And I said it was pretty challenging to get engagement. And he said, you should do something with drums. They love drums. And that's where it all started for me, just a passing comment in a corridor. Yep. And I don't have that background with drumming. I'm a sort of tinkerer, but play around with a lot of instruments. But I've really found that to be quite useful in my work, not to have a background as a drummer.
Yes.
It's really helped in terms of me being able to, just showcase to people that you don't need to be an expert in the drum. It's reduced this sort of power differential between me as the expert and my clients, as the people that needing help. Often my clients are better drummers than I am. And that's empowering for them. And certainly in the early days they were. That's where I came from, and I continue to train a range of different Indigenous services, members of different services, mainly counselling and health services in Australia and Canada.
Right. That's fantastic. Yeah, and it's one of the things that struck me also, Simon, about your work was you were very humble, but you kept telling me, oh, I'm not a musician, not a professional, but you're a wonderful player, by the way, and I kept telling you that. But it is such a beautiful way to open accessibility for people so that they feel non-threatened. And you always laid the groundwork of a beautifully friendly, safe place to explore. It was one of the things I was so struck by, and so beautifully designed. So I think in the book articulates that as well. And you invited so many of the authors to do that as well, to lay out a safe environment and follow that same protocol, I think, that you have established in your work.
Yeah, I think that's a critical part of, engagement, is creating that safe space. And certainly that helps.
Right.
And it's one of the things I have to work with a lot when I train drummers. I don't get many drummers to my work, but sometimes they're the most challenging to work with.
I was going to say, who's the most challenging, Simon?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to jump in too, because I that's one of the things I love most, Simon. I love your passion. I love to hear you talk about how it connects people to things greater than themselves. But I really love it also, I heard you use the word danger earlier and different things like that. Like, I feel like you really respect the power of it. And I like the way that you come at it from that place of safety first. I think there's a lot of facilitators that could stand to be more adaptable and flexible in that way, and understand that the djembe isn't right for every person at every moment, for one example.
Yeah. And we do look a little bit at the sort of some of the risks around that too. And I think that is important. And, there is some research to show that loud, fast drumming can be quite harmful. So, a lot of the research is showing that, slow and soft drumming is very therapeutic. But loud, fast drumming can cause anxiety, can cause psychotic episodes, can cause disassociation, can trigger traumatic memories for veterans because of the, familiarity in terms of the sound of gunfire, for refugees. And that's really important to know if you are taking music into working with some of these vulnerable population groups. Plus, it doesn't take much to lift your volume above threshold for, danger for your ears.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So true. And we are really supporters of caring for our ears.
Yeah. I once got a grant. I got a grant for, I think it was, something $50,000 to soundproof a therapy room for group drumming.
Wow.
And we put all that money into soundproofing, and still we couldn't have more than 12 people playing djembes in that room.
Yeah.
Without going above the threshold.
Yes.
And that was with $50,000 worth of soundproofing. So when you bring 20 people into a room or 15 people and you allow them to go crazy, and sometimes you can't help it. If you're working with high-risk adolescents, there's going to be loud, fast drumming.
Sure. Yeah.
But, the overall theme is to try and reduce that and help people learn to get comfortable with slow and steady, soft beats.
Right.
Challenge them that way. But yeah, you can really you can damage people.
And that was the other thing I loved about your work, was the sensitivity to sound level. That was extraordinary for me, that you were always and you are always very sensitive in that realm. Mike?
Well, yes, that's what I was going to say. So it's, the book is not just packed with activities. What I'm hearing is it's going to help me first do no harm, and the considerations I need to make before I even set foot in the place that I'm maybe working. So I want to put the title in the chat. Is there a specific place you would prefer for people to pick up the book, Simon?
Yes.
No, not really. I'm not a great fan of Amazon, to be frank.
That's okay.
A guy who's worth about $40 billion and pays his workers $10 an hour. But Jessica Kingsley publishes. They've got websites in the UK. They've got agents. They've got a website in the US. They've got agents around the world. So if you go on their website, you can certainly find it there. I'm sure that many of the authors will have it on their web pages by the time it's released. It's not released until the 18th of March, so we've got a few weeks yet. No, I don't have any specific recommendations in terms of where to get.
I'll go ahead and put your links to your website in there, though, so people can check out your other work.
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks, Mike.
And Mike, have you seen questions come in? If there are some questions now, we have a little bit of time. Simon, before we move to questions, is there any other big concept you'd like to share? Anything else that we might have missed that you can think of? We've been all around. I was going to ask again, how many did you list the different communities that we're touching on in the book? Early childhood.
Yep. Early childhood, youth, autism, trauma, mental health, drug and alcohol, refugees, neurodiverse communities, physical and intellectual disabilities, seniors, dementia and Alzheimer's, grief and loss, living with cancer, prisoners, veterans, survivors of natural disasters, Aboriginal First Nations, wellness and personal growth, and a very significant chapter on working in corporate development by John Hagedorn in Malaysia.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
I wanted everybody to hear that again, because it's such a comprehensive view of the ways that we can use this work in the world and serve so many different communities. I mean, that's the beauty, that you've collected the wisdom of the elders, so to speak, those that are really out in the field workshopping this work and dealing with this work in all of these different communities. And they're sharing just the depth of their experience and wisdom in this book. And it's so broad-based. Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, look, I'm sure, and well, I know that there are other, very experienced practitioners in these fields. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, these aren't the only experts, but these are people that I know firsthand, and that's why I chose them.
Right.
So, there are a lot of very experienced people that aren't represented in this book, but I know firsthand these people, and I know their experience, and that's what sort of was important to me, that I could, justify their work.
I love that. I appreciate being one of those, Simon.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
We have time for a few questions. So I'd like to open it up. Mike, do you see any in the chat bar that have come through?
Well, one was just about any online programming you have, or where are you at with all of that?
Well, look, it's not my favorite area. I'm afraid. I'm the wrong generation. But and you know, for me, it doesn't replicate the same in the same way the power, obviously, of face-to-face with the drum. But we have put together, it's more of a resource package rather than a training program. So it provides you with a very comprehensive workbook and access to about 200 training videos and a whole range of other sort of templates and discussion forums. So you can find that on our website. It's an online training and resource package. It does come with a optional webinar. So if you have no experience at all, the optional webinar can be quite useful. It's a 3-hour webinar as an introduction to this sort of work. But otherwise, if you've got a background, I think the resource package in itself is full of really good practical exercises that you can read about, but you can also see if you're a visually orientated person.
Super. Is Drum Circle, Irene was asking in the chat bar, is Drum Circle facilitation becoming a part of music therapy programs in training in Australia? Is it part of an integral part of the education of music therapists? Do you know?
No, I don't think it is. It's a what would you call it? An extracurricular activity. So people can do a unit, I think, on Drum Circle facilitation, okay. But that's basically as far as it goes, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I was curious.
I mean, there are a lot of people who are using rhythm within music therapy. And certainly we train a lot of music therapists in our work. But music therapy schools are very different depending on where you are. In Australia, there's not a lot of reflective work done in music therapy at all. The music does the healing, whether that's the therapist playing the music or the or playing with the patient.
Right.
But generally, I find that when music therapists do our work, it's the first time they've actually thought about doing reflective practice. So, linking the exercises to a discussion and raising awareness and expanding perspective around the issues that person is facing. So yeah, in other schools, I know in Germany, they do a lot of reflective practice within music therapy. So I'd say it's probably very different depending on which school you're involved in.
Sure. I suspect that's the same in the States as well, I would think. If you had one thing to tell our listeners and anybody else who sees this, what might it be if you were going to give them a piece of advice if they wanted to go into this field in some way? Is there anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, I'd say it's an expanding field. It's getting greater and greater recognition, and society's never been more needy of it. So, yes. Particularly post-COVID, there's going to be such a need for connection and for healing.
Right.
But the thing I would talk about that I haven't mentioned so far is the importance of evaluating your work. I had a teacher recently who'd been doing drumming in education with students with disabilities for 12 years. She had, she recognized that this was some of the most powerful work that she did. And last week, a new principal arrived at her school and told her that drumming was over, no more drumming. And she had nothing to fall back on. She had never really got into the practice of evaluating her work, and so she could not stand up for it. She could say but yeah. She had nothing concrete to say, this is what I've noticed, this is what we've documented, this is the feedback from parents, this is the feedback from other teachers. It'd be crazy to stop this. So she lost, all that work and, her greatest love. So I just, the reason I'm sitting here before you today is because right from the beginning, I started to evaluate everything I did. And, it's not a major undertaking. It's only a matter of just putting in a quick questionnaire before you start, a quick questionnaire afterwards, some a couple of phone calls to parents or some questionnaires to parents or other teachers, simple little measures like that. And you can put a report together and you can document, the impact you're making. And that's really critical, I think, for this work, to be able to showcase the impact we're making and also to learn what mistakes we're making as well, so that we can adapt that work.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful.
So,
I
yeah.
so appreciate you sharing that because I believe that as well. And I've been
Mm.
very interested in the neuroscience that backs up the work we're doing as well. And educators need to have that information so that they can go to their directors and their schools and the principals and the
Yeah. But
advisors of their programs. Yeah,
you'd be amazed how few people do it though, Mary.
I
It's
know.
just that, I don't know, there seems to be a block that people
Yeah,
just don't do it.
it's funny and it's true. And it's
Mm.
so easy to do a pre and post
It is,
question.
yeah.
So that's fabulous. And also getting quotes and getting views from their parents as what they're noticing with their kids.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
there's templates in the back of the book for all of those.
good,
Sort of, yeah.
good. Ah, that's fabulous.
I think that's some of the best advice I've ever heard. Thank
Me
you. Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Understanding the why and just
Yep.
knowing how to do, a simple pre and post evaluation and ask some questions and document your work. That's so fantastic.
And
Yeah.
really, Simon, you're the first one to speak to that. So it's one of the huge gifts you bring to the community is modeling that. Well, I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is.
Yeah.
And
No, it's
modeling
important.
that for us and also providing us with tools and structures so that we can do that ourselves as well. So, wow.
Right.
Thank you so much. Wow, it's been fantastic. I don't know if I'm going to just open up the screen. Wave your hand if you have anything in closing before we close. If anybody has anything, I don't see anybody going, oh, I have to do. Oh, okay. Let's see. Deborah. Deborah, you want to unmute? We got a quick.
Yes, I just want to say hello, Simon.
Hey, how are you, Tara?
Blessings,
How's
brother.
Texas?
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been cold down there.
Is she in Australia as well?
No, she's in Austin.
Oh, you're in Austin. No, that's, I was trying to think, where are you? Oh, you're in Austin. Yeah, it has been cold there.
It's
Absolutely.
80 degrees today, so.
Oh, yay. It's
We're
getting
good.
better now with
I
all
just
the
wanted to say
broken
hello,
pipes.
Simon. Thank you for sharing this, and it's just so good to see you, brother. Peace out.
Yeah, lovely to see you too, Deb.
Hey, so it kind of takes us to the end of our time with Simon. We're so appreciative. So we'll give this Zoom appreciation. Woo! Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
everyone.
Simon. We can do
Thank
that, and
you.
then we can high five each other on the side. I kind of like that too. High five! Woohoo! It's one of those Zoom things we learned early on with the kids. Yeah. Okay, great. So I think, Mike, you did put most of Simon's information. Is it already in the chat bar? Super.
And let me just remind everybody that you can save the chat also if you're here in this meeting.
Oh yeah, in the chat, there was a lot going on in the chat today. I didn't get a chance. I was working with Simon, so I didn't get a chance to read it. So I'll be saving the chat bar for
And
sure.
I want to throw one other quick thing out. We have a number of things to mention really quickly, but the Drum Circle Facilitators Guild is having their annual conference this year. That's where I met Mary, as a matter of fact.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Years
So I
ago.
just wanted to throw that plug out, dcfg.net. It's a really great experience. There's
It
at least
is.
several people here who are presenters or involved in organizing that in some way. And it starts this Friday.
And you'll meet amazing people. It's even more fun in person, but do it virtual. It should be really quite wonderful. Arthur will be there. He was with us last week if you were here with us. And Mike, okay, let's see. So we'll do our rundown for the closing. So donations, this is a program that's by donations. And Mike, if you can just put the page up on the Music for People website. We've been going for a year and we're now opening it up. So we started with really the senior population and caregivers and those working with seniors and seniors themselves. We are now opening it up to intergenerational and all populations. And as you can tell from Simon's book, it is really touching on so many different communities. And we're so appreciative, Simon, for you sort of opening up the range. So if you'd like to donate, Mike put the link in the chat bar. We have this weekend we have a Fill Your Home with Music. Irene, I think we have that Saturday. Is that correct? And I'm also going to just give a shout out to Irene.
Coming Saturday at 1 o'clock.
Super. And Mike, I think, do you have the link for that so you can put it in? That is really, we started this at the beginning of the pandemic, and we've been doing it ever since, and really exploring creating music together with you online, looking at all of the possibilities and the ways that we can connect musically, virtually.
Similar to drum circles, but with all instruments and voice.
And voice. Yeah, it's great fun. So the link is there if you're interested in that. Mike and I have a training event that's coming up next month. Create your own wellness events online using music, movement, and connection. And we'll have more coming out about that. Mike, can you give us the date and the time? Because for some reason I didn't write that on my sheet.
Yeah, that's so funny. We had so many other things to mention. I didn't pull that up.
You're like, what?
But yeah, we're going to be teaching, digital basics, the Zoom platform, but also a number of specific activities you can use. And I'll put the dates in the chat here in just a moment. The date, excuse me.
Great. And Irene's was fill your home with music. I just see somebody asking that. That's Irene.
I think it was also to mention we have a wonderful project at
Concordia, please. Yes.
And I work in collaboration with the Student Success Center and the Department of Music, and we have a wonderful program for which we received a very generous donation. It is called Live Your Music at Concordia. We are so hoping that by the fall we can go back to in-person meetings, even if we're outdoors, spaced apart. But we have continued it virtually, and this coming week is the break, so we will not be the first week of March. We are not happening, but we do have a Facebook page. You can look us up. It is called Live Your Music at Concordia. We are also listed on the Concordia University website in the events page. It is a 1-hour virtual jam Wednesdays from 5:30 to 6:30. It is international and open to everyone.
Thanks, Irene. So one of the ways that we wanted to close today is for you to put one of your biggest takeaways from Simon's session today in the chat bar. So as you reflect now, because Simon has showed us the power of reflection and gleaning from the experience, what you've learned, I would love it if you would right now just pop in the chat bar. You can thank him for this fabulous presentation. And if you put in what your biggest takeaway is, it'll help us to know what really is floating at the top of all of your ideas right now. So take a moment and pop it in the chat bar. I'm going to play the Rav Vast, Simon, for just a minute, and we'll see what's coming up for you. And so we are documenting, modeling the documentation. And you can actually check out the chat bar as it rolls by to see what people are taking away from today's session. Thanks, Simon, for joining us today. Next week, hey, Mike, let's see, we have Rufus Glasgow, I think. I hope that's correct, Rufus. Oh, good, okay. Rufus did a chapter. Hey, Simon, you want to tell while people are writing in the chat bar still? Or Rufus, is he here? He dropped in and out and in and out. If he's here, Rufus. Oh, there you are. Why don't you unmute, Rufus? Rufus will be with us next week. You want to just give a quick the chapter in the book and what you're going to share with us next week?
Yes, thank you. I wrote the chapter on drumming with people with cancer. And we have an amazing organization here in Canada called Wellspring, which provides a lot of alternative, complementary alternative therapies, as we call them. So I'll be not only talking about some of the good things to know when working with a population like that, and also which kinds of organizations to approach to do that kind of work if you don't have a local Wellspring in your community, which you probably wouldn't if you're not in Canada. But also we're going to be doing some experiential stuff. So bring your drums. You don't have to be a drummer. We can do a lot of it with our body percussion stuff. So it's all about having fun and also learning some of the challenges that people with cancer are having to navigate. And, it's a particularly important group to work with when it comes to helping them with their stress, because, we're all pretty stressed already, but imagine how stressful it is to get cancer and then having to navigate the challenges of leaving work and dealing with children and all of these other things. So yeah, I'm really blessed to have done this work. It's some of the most rewarding work that I've done, and I would love to encourage you to try it because the need is great. We all know people who've had cancer, and the need is huge. It's a really powerful way to get people not just to connect, but to share their wisdom with each other, because the wisdom of the group is always greater than the wisdom that I bring in. And if you can get that, get those people to help share with each other, they transform from being victims of cancer to people who are experts in recovery and supporting each other. So it turns them into, it gives them this sense of gratitude and expertise that they can share with other people who aren't as far down the journey through recovery as they are.
Thanks, Rufus. It'll be great to have you. Really looking forward to it. And so we're featuring, as you can see, for the next couple of weeks, we're featuring authors from the book, and we will have more authors from the book as well. Lulu and I, maybe we'll do something on early childhood. We haven't set that up yet, so we'll be featuring as we go along. Jana Broder, am I correct on her last name? I don't think she's with us tonight. Jana will be with us after Rufus. And so we've got some great presenters coming up, and we really thank you so much for joining us tonight. Simon, thank you so much. Woohoo! It was
Pleasure.
great.
Thank you, Simon.
Joined us on Thursday. I know it's our night, and I think it's your day. What time is it there for you now?
It's just after lunch.
Ah, good. Well, have a lovely day. And for those of you on this side of the world, have a lovely evening. And thank you so much for joining. I'll play you out. And you can put thank yous. You can unmute and say thanks to Simon.
Thank you.
As you go.
Thanks, Mary.
Many thanks, Simon.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
Hello.
Thanks,
you,
Mike.
and Irene.
You're the best.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Irene, for letting me know.
Oh, you're welcome, Jasmine. Glad you made it.
Thanks for coming, Jasmine.
Thank you. I agree very much with what Rufus said. It rings true. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your input in the chat bar too. It's fabulous.
A la prochaine.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay.
Or good day. Does that work, Simon? No.
I think it's g'day. G'day,
G'day.
mate.
I just like it's fun to say. Good day, Mike.
Yeah.
Didn't quite work.
All right.
Thanks,
I can't wait to get back there, Simon, as soon as they let us in the country. They may not let Americans in there for a very long time. We may
I'll
not
put a word in for you.
That's right.
Yes. Simon
we may
Faulkner,
not go anywhere for a long time.
a great author, also a good sport. Who knew?
See you, Mike. Thanks for helping out.
Thanks so much, Simon. That was just a joy to have you. Oh, see you later.
Good night, everybody.
There you go.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
See you, Lulu. See you, Lulu.